Delivering Miracles is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families like yours and mine. Download the free network app on any Apple and Android devices and listen to your favorite episodes on the go. Okay, who is overwhelmed by all the talk about getting rid of environmental toxins from your home to improve your health, especially your reproductive health? I am. I look around my house and I see how many things I need to switch out, how many exposures we have to toxins, and it's so overwhelming to think, how am I going to undo all of this and how am I going to replace them with better quality products? That is why I was so relieved to find Mighty Nest, because they've got the solution. A monthly subscription box that is fully personalized by you based on whatever it is that you want to switch out first, and they send you one new toxin-free item per month to try. It's just one at a time. What a relief. And I got to tell you, I picked food storage as the one to start with, and I'm in love. I love how easy it is. I love how affordable it is. This monthly subscription box, it's even cheaper than a monthly subscription to Netflix. And for Delivering Miracles listeners, you get $5 off and free shipping from your very first month subscription to the Mighty Fix. It's personalized, it's easy, it takes the overwhelm out of it, and now I'm slowly replacing all of my toxin-packed items with toxin-free ones, all within my budget. So head over to parijatdeshpande.com/mightynest and get your promo code now and get started today. You are going to love it. Okay, who is overwhelmed by all the talk about getting rid of environmental toxins from your home to improve your health, especially your reproductive health? I am. I look around my house and I see how many things I need to switch out, how many exposures we have to toxins, and it's so overwhelming to think, how am I going to undo all of this and how am I going to replace them with better quality products? That is why I was so relieved to find Mighty Nest, because they've got the solution. A monthly subscription box that is fully personalized by you based on whatever it is that you want to switch out first, and they send you one new toxin-free item per month to try. It's just one at a time. What a relief. And I got to tell you, I picked food storage as the one to start with, and I'm in love. I love how easy it is. I love how affordable it is. This monthly subscription box, it's even cheaper than a monthly subscription to Netflix. And for Delivering Miracles listeners, you get $5 off and free shipping from your very first month subscription to the Mighty Fix. It's personalized, it's easy, it takes the overwhelm out of it, and now I'm slowly replacing all of my toxin-packed items with toxin-free ones, all within my budget. So head over to parijatdeshpande.com/mightynest and get your promo code now and get started today. You are going to love it. Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. Before switching careers to help women who have high-risk pregnancies stay pregnant, I used to work as a child and family therapist, and I loved that work. It was so much fun to be around kids and parents, and I used to work with kiddos from really young toddlers, like just barely out of infancy, all the way to teenagers, though my sweet spot was in the elementary school range at 5 to 6-year-olds. Oh my gosh, they were so cute and so much fun to work with. So I remember actually during 1 year of my internship, we were all in our case consultation group, which was just a group where all of us therapists would get together and we talk about our clients and get support and ask questions on how to best help our clients. And one day, our supervisor shared a study that had been recently published that said that autism risk rises as fathers' age rises. And at the time, it was just recently published. There's nothing really like it back then. And all that meant was essentially that the older the father was at the time of conception, the higher the risk of developing autism in the child. Now, it's not obviously a cause and effect situation, but it was the first time that we'd heard anything about dad's age impacting the kid at all. And I'll never forget what happened in the room. All of us girls breathed a collective sigh of relief. Like, you could feel the air changing because it was like, phew, it's not all on us to make sure our kids are happy, healthy, whatever. There's so much information out there on women's biological clocks and egg quality and the time that you have. And you've got to get it in the right frame and the right time. And it can translate to a lot of pressure. And this was the first time that we were finally told, hey, it's not just your responsibility. And on the flip side, all the guys in the room looked like deer in headlights, totally shocked. Like, wait, being somebody like Hugh Hefner isn't really necessarily part of my future? Like, I can't just keep going and nothing's going to happen? It was such a moment I'll never forget, because it was the first time we'd really considered child development from a perspective of both mom and dad, from when conception happens and even before that, actually impacting the child, that both of us have an impact on it. That it was just mind-blowing. And so it's something that I've held on to for a long time, and something I've counseled families on when I was practicing as a therapist, and now when friends or potential clients ask about what they should do to help themselves get pregnant, I talk about how it's important for both partners to get tested and all of that. And then George Clooney happened. This self-professed permanent bachelor got married, and then his wife got pregnant when he was 55 years old. Now, what struck me was not too much before that, Janet Jackson got pregnant at the age of 50, and everything was about her age. I mean, she was so old. What was she thinking? She's 50. That's way too late in life to have babies. But George Clooney was 55, and that was never part of the conversation. Nobody was talking about his age. It was maybe, did they do IVF? But nobody was talking about how old he was, except one person. And she wrote, and I quote, "It's awesome that celebrities are sharing their IVF stories, but fertility doctors should take advantage of this huge opportunity and educate the public about the risks of advanced paternal age too." And that is when I knew I had to have her on Delivering Miracles to talk about this, because no one's talking about this. So I'm super excited to introduce to you Dr. Aimee Eyvazzadeh. Dr. Aimee, also known as the Egg Whisperer, is one of America's most well-known fertility doctors. Her success rate at baby making is what gives future parents hope when all hope is lost. She's had a hand in creating thousands of happy, healthy babies. Dr. Aimee's a Harvard-educated, board-certified OBGYN specializing in reproductive endocrinology and infertility, but it's her egg freezing parties that put her in the limelight and made her a media darling. She's been featured on magazines like People and Marie Claire, and has been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, CBS Morning, Fox Network, along with a number of local and international newscasts. In her off time, Dr. Aimee is a mom of 4 rambunctious young kids aged 9 and under, and her goal is to teach everyone how to become fertility aware and get ahead of infertility. Welcome, Dr. Aimee. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. I am as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that article, when I read it, was just, it was a firestorm in social media when he announced, or when it leaked, whatever it was that they were expecting. And your article really stood out amongst everything out there, because you're the only one that was talking about it.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is recently, just in the last couple of weeks, it's kind of been under the radar because of all the other world news going on right now, is about how some media outlets are covering the fact that he actually didn't use fertility treatment, and quoting him as saying that he was completely surprised that he was pregnant with twins. And you and I both know enough to know that you don't believe what you read online. But I just think it's fascinating to me that they're covering it in this way, rather than using it as an opportunity to talk to people about the risks of pregnancy at an older age, or even to celebrate what it means to be an older parent and maybe some of the benefits. So to mislead people into thinking that you can get pregnant, quote unquote, naturally. See, for me, every pregnancy is natural. It doesn't matter how it was conceived, but to somehow boast, and I don't think he was boasting. I think that the media is twisting his words to make it seem like he didn't use fertility treatment, so people click on the articles.
Right.
But for them to make it seem like he's boasting about not using fertility treatment, which I don't think he is, I find that fascinating as well right now.
Right. And I can tell you, as a patient who's gone through fertility treatment in my 20s, that hearing things like that just make me feel awful. Like, oh my God, this 50-year-old person didn't need fertility treatment, but I did, 30 years younger than him. What does that even mean about me? Right. And so you're right. Like, I wish this would be an opportunity to have that conversation about whether he did it or not. What does it mean? And what information actually do you need to make these decisions for yourself?
Right. It makes it harder for me when I have consultations with patients, when people see things like that, because I'm trying to educate them and I'm hoping that they learn as much as possible before they decide on their treatment path. And so if they see things like that, well, if he did it, well, I should be able to do it too.
Yes.
And certainly we know that that's not true.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk just really briefly. I'd love to know how you got into the work that you're doing as a reproductive endocrinologist. What inspires you to do this work?
So I joke and tell people I was a fertility doctor from birth. My grandfather, my father, it's just something that's just a part of me. My grandfather was one of the most well-known fertility doctors in his country of origin, which is Iran. And he owned one of the largest maternity hospitals in Iran, delivering, I don't even know how many tens of thousands of babies. Literally, one of my first patients here in California was a patient my grandfather not only delivered, but he also helped her mom get pregnant. So you can imagine.
Oh my God.
Very special for me to take care of her and hear the story after she delivered. She didn't tell her mother she needed fertility treatment until after she had a baby. Then she said, "Hey mom, just wanted you to know I needed fertility care." And her mom said, "Seriously? I did too." And then her mom asked her, "Well, who was your doctor?" And she said, "Dr. Eyvazzadeh." And she said, "Well, that's odd. That was my doctor too." And so that's how we kind of found out that there was this very amazing connection between all of us. And
that is so cool.
Her daughter is almost 7 years old. I'm friends with her on Facebook. She brings her in once a year to meet me because she obviously not obviously, but I'd like to think obviously she's hoping her daughter will, maybe be inspired to have a career in fertility medicine as well.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So it kind of comes in your blood. It's just part of who you are. So did you always know that this is what you wanted to do? Or were you like a little kid imagining and
always
pretending?
I knew at age 3 I wanted to be an OBGYN. My mother suffered through countless miscarriages, even miscarriages over 20 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said in middle school, I said, well, what kind of doctor takes care of women like that? And then my dad taught me it was someone called a reproductive endocrinologist. And then I said, well, that's exactly what I want to do. So in high school, in college, I was doing research at the Harvard Recurrent Pregnancy Loss Center. And then in medical school, I received a research grant to continue my research. And then I just went, into fellowship after my OBGYN training. It was just a natural progression of things that led me to completing my training. And I'll never forget, June 23rd, 2008. And that's when I started my practice here in San Ramon. And I've been in practice now, almost 8-9 years. So it's thrilling to see my babies in the community when I go to the grocery store, when I go to school, just to watch them grow, and helping families that I've helped in 2008 now have 3, sometimes even 4 kids now. That's also special.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, I can, like I said, having been a patient, I see my reproductive endocrinologist as somebody who's basically part of the family, because I wouldn't have a family if it weren't for him. And so I can only imagine from the other side of just seeing your hard work and how much you put into and how much you're invested in your patients now being able to experience that joy they weren't sure they'd ever have.
Right. And that's the thing. I think if you, as you know from your work, if you help patients focus on I call it a PMA, a positive mental attitude, no matter what they're going through today, I just tell them, you take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself, and the good things will just come your way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive in because I'm really curious about your perspective on paternal age and fertility. I mean, what is it about paternal age that impacts a man's fertility, and how does his age kind of impact whether the couple gets pregnant? I mean, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys, they just look at their sperm count and they're like, oh, yay, I have millions of swimmers. High five to me. I'm awesome. And the thing is that sperm quality isn't just about how much sperm you have. It's about the motility. It's about the progression. It's about the shape. And then to dig a little bit deeper, it's about the DNA. So just because you have great sperm doesn't mean that you're going to have normal embryo development, right? And so it's heartbreaking to see patients who come see me for the first time at, let's say, 39 and 40, and we're going through IVF after IVF after IVF, and people aren't paying attention to the sperm quality and the sperm contribution to the eggs. So you want a healthy egg, but you also want the healthiest sperm possible to make sure that the embryos continue to grow and divide, and you get a high quality genetically normal embryo in the end. So I see a lot of patients who are over 40. And then I see a lot of patients who've gone through treatment before meeting me. And then I ask them, well, what did you do about the sperm? And they say, oh, no, everyone said it was awesome. It was great. The problem is all me. And I say,
Yeah.
but you can just tell that the sperm quality is low. And then there's certain tests that you can actually do to look at the genetic variants in the sperm that could potentially make it so that embryos don't grow normally. And unlike eggs, like we're born with all the eggs that we'll ever have, men with their sperm, there are negative and positive things that they, or I should say that there are things that they can do that will negatively or positively impact their sperm quality. So it's not just, oh, this is the sperm, this is how it is, I don't want to know. It's find out, because there are things that you can do to make it even better, like address testosterone issues, take supplements, decrease stress, exercise, drop weight, make sure that your other chronic medical problems are addressed. Because it's not just finding out and then that's it. It's finding out so you know what to do. And the sperm life cycle is about 2 months. So whatever you do today is going to help for your future success.
That's awesome. And what I hear from you is that there's a lot of hope in being able to address this. It's just that we're not talking about it enough. And why do you think that is?
I think it has to do with, and I don't want to like hurt feelings of any men out there, but I think it's this, we kind of still live in a male chauvinist culture. And that culture is still there in fertility practices, where we blame women all day, every day for all their issues and say, it's your eggs, it's your eggs, it's your eggs. Certainly, it is. A lot of fertility issues are age-related, associated with eggs. But I think that if the eggs are exposed to better sperm, perhaps women out there will have a better chance of conceiving.
Right. Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about what these tests are that men can do and should be doing if the couple is having trouble getting pregnant?
Absolutely. When I talk about testing, I want to make clear that when I bring up a company, it's not because I'm trying to promote anyone or sell a product. It's just about me making people more aware of what testing is available. So there's one company called ReproSource, and they do a test called the Advanced Sperm Analysis or Advanced Semen Assessment. And it looks at DNA fragmentation. So the actual term is DFI, DNA Fragmentation Index. And if someone's DFI is well over 30%, the chance of having a live birth is very low. You can have a guy that has perfectly normal semen parameters, normal count, normal motility, normal morphology, and they can still have a very high DFI. And I find that this is the case in guys who are older. So I recommend testing like this to anyone who has chronic medical problems, has some lifestyle issues like smoking and drinking, is overweight, or is over the age of 40, or in anyone who's just been trying and has been given the diagnosis of unexplained. There's another company, and that company is Episona, and they look at epigenetic changes in the sperm, and they actually tell you where these changes are, the exact locations, and their function. And then they'll give you a sort of scale to show you where you are relative to what's considered normal, borderline, or abnormal. And I think the best part of their test is they kind of tell you about embryo development, because you have so many people that go through IVF cycles and they end up with no blastocyst, and it's heartbreaking. Or they
It
get
is.
pregnant and then they miscarry. So this test can kind of inform you about whether the sperm is contributing in any way to either of those issues. For me, I would want to do a $500 test so that I don't have to spend $20,000 to learn things the hard way. I would do a $500 test to find out if there's anything else that I could do differently before I spend that kind of emotion and finances on a cycle. So it's just a matter of getting just a little bit more data, a little bit more information to inform your decision making so that you don't look back and say, gosh, why didn't I do this test first?
Right.
And I know it's disappointing to take a time out to do more testing, but it's devastating to go through a cycle and have it not work. And at the end of the day, we're still dealing with human biology. So even if you do all these tests, there's still a chance that things don't work. But at least you'll never look back and say, why didn't I take advantage of everything available to me? And then anytime something doesn't work, I call it a learning process. It's just about learning about what's going to work, what's not going to work, so that we can help you reach your goals. And that's the hard part about fertility. I mean, where you are, you probably see a lot of engineers, software engineers. I mean, people that have this idea that, okay, what's the percentage? What's the chance? And they can't, it's hard for them to wrap their mind around how fertility medicine works. It's so different from engineering. In engineering, everything's precise, everything's exact. You make a calculation, and it's always like that. But in fertility medicine, it's like, well, there's a 75% chance this embryo is going to implant. And that's really all I can tell you. And then people ask, well, why wouldn't it? Well, I say, well, this, or that. And they can't understand why I can't control for this, or that. And the best way that I can describe it to people is that it's human biology. And at the end of the day, we still don't know everything there is to know about why an embryo sticks and grows. But we're trying so hard as scientists to figure everything out. And that's why these sperm tests, I think, are so important and valuable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just going through it and the heart, I mean, there's really blood, sweat, and tears that goes into every cycle, whether you're trying to conceive on your own, whether you're taking pills or medication, doing IVF, whatever it is, you've got everything on the line. And I completely agree with you. I'd rather know as much as I can possibly know ahead of time, so then I know what my options are going forward. I know what to expect. I know what actions to take to improve our ability to get pregnant. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you ever find that you have a couple that comes in and the man's just like, no, I don't want to do it. I think I'm fine.
Yeah, I find guys that are really resistant to learning more, but I would say that is, fortunately, that's really, really rare.
Oh, good.
I think that when I do find a guy that's resistant to even doing a semen analysis, there are some guys that even don't want to do that. That usually is a sign to me that there's a relationship issue, and I'm usually right about that. So I try and focus on what's going on in the relationship, that you don't want to obviously, do anything to reach your goals of being a parent. So
that's really interesting that you say that, because I do hear from a lot of women that, hey, I'm trying, we're going through the process, but he's just not interested. He doesn't want to do anything. And I think I'm so glad that you brought that up, because sometimes there is a much deeper issue. And so for those of you that are listening, if you feel like you and your partner aren't on the same page about the testing to be done or the steps to take to get pregnant, that it's a good opportunity to step back and say, okay, what else is going on in our relationship that could be impeding this? That's not having to do at all with fertility and having to do with completely something else.
Right. IVF, as you and I both know, doesn't make relationships better. It doesn't bring you together. If you're already stressed out, it can just make you more stressed. So for people who think that having a child together when you're already stressed going through IVF is going to make your relationship better, the time to fix your relationship is before you go through treatment, not after you've created embryos. We see so many of those embryo fights out there online. I certainly have had patients who've gone through those fights privately after they've separated from a difficult divorce. But you saw the signs while they were going through divorce.
Right. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So can you talk a little bit then specifically on how paternal age can affect pregnancy rates or the health of a pregnancy going forward?
Yeah, it's still, I would say, I'll use the word controversial. And I say controversial because it's in the literature. We're understanding more and more about the contribution of paternal age, but we still don't know everything. And I think as companies like Episona and ReaperSource collect data and use it for research to learn more about the contribution of paternal age to things like autism and autism spectrum disorders, we're certainly going to learn more about sperm contribution. But right now, I feel like we're just at the beginning stages. There have been studies published for years about epigenetic changes and how the more epigenetic changes you see in sperm, the higher the risk to the pregnancy. Like, that's documented. But I think to actually give someone a precise calculation, and that's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
So I see patients, let's say the husband's age is 50 plus, they say, well, I really want to know, what is my chance? What is it?
Yeah.
And I can say, well, it's higher. And what is higher, and what does it mean for you based on your sperm DNA? That's what I want to give people. I don't want to give people just a general, oh, well, there's a higher risk of schizophrenia. There's a higher risk of imprinting disorders. There's a higher risk of autism. I want to say, okay, this is your sperm DNA. This is what is your risk. So the best thing that I can do right now is offer them these tests and tell them what they can do to improve things. And if they're off the charts as far as like having thousands of issues with the sperm, then I could say, well, maybe you should consider other options to grow to start your family or continue growing your family, and maybe consider donor sperm.
Yeah, right. Talk to us a little bit about donor sperm, because I think that's something that donor eggs is just now being talked about a little more frequently, but donor sperm is something I think we're really quiet about. How does that work? And I mean, how would a couple even start considering that as an option?
Yeah, so I would say if you've gone through multiple cycles without success, you've had embryos that aren't developing normally, especially if you have a younger egg. I do have, let's say, families where the egg age is, maybe under 35, and the paternal age is over 45, and you're just not seeing the embryo development that you would expect. Then that might be an opportunity to start considering donor sperm. There are other situations where sperm count is exceedingly low. Let's say an older father has undergone a vasectomy and then had a reversal. So that's a reason why sperm counts can be really, really low. And then the sperm function could also potentially be really low as well. So that's another time to consider sperm donation. Mm-hmm. I ask families to consider sperm donation if the father is over 50. I just like to have that conversation, just because when a woman, most of my patients over, I would say in their mid, even early 40s, they are talking about egg donation. It's not taboo. Right. And I would say probably 98% of pregnancies in women over 42 are conceived with donor eggs in fertility practices. But for some reason, when you bring up donor sperm in a mommy-daddy scenario, men are the first ones to say, I would never do that. But for some reason, women are very ready and willing to use donor eggs. And there are some guys that would say, I don't want to use donor eggs, but I'm happy to use donor sperm. I do see that. And that's just a really good sign to me about a very healthy relationship and couple, because they're both on board with as far as like doing everything possible for them to reach their goals. Both of them are, committed 100% to do their part or do whatever they need to do.
Right. And they're having the conversation. They're considering different options instead of a hard, absolutely not for any new suggestion that you have and bring up with them.
Right. So my process is this. Do the testing and see experts, get advice, see geneticists, see a male fertility specialist. Find out everything there is to find out about your sperm before you make a decision. And then if the decision is to use a sperm donor, do your due diligence. Work as hard as you did to get to your decision to use a sperm donor, and then do that to find a sperm donor. And you can actually do the same test on donor sperm. Since the Episona seed test has been available, I've had 4 families take frozen donor sperm and get it analyzed too. Because
that's cool.
If you're gonna spend energy and look at sperm of your own, why wouldn't you apply those same rules to donor sperm to make sure that it's also equally viable? Because if that rule that I told you at the beginning of your podcast is you don't assume that sperm has great function just based on the quality, we should apply it to everyone, including donated sperm. So I do have families who listen to that, hear that, and choose to do extra testing before they use it in their cycles.
That's awesome. And it all just goes back to the same point that we keep bringing up, which is do the testing, get the information, understand what you're working with so you can make informed decisions, because it's really, really hard to keep going cycle after cycle and just not get pregnant or keep losing the baby and not know why. Right. And if you can do it ahead of time, then you really have a much better idea of the landscape. You understand what's going on. You understand what your options are, and you can really make better decisions about what's best for you and your family.
Right. Exactly.
Would you say that, is there any connection between paternal age and miscarriage risk?
Yes, and so you can see that in the DFI studies. So if you go to PubMed, that's the Google for physicians. So if you just put in DNA fragmentation or DFI, sperm, miscarriage risk, you'll find a number of studies that show that the higher the DFI, the higher the risk of miscarriage. And so that's one of the most frustrating things as an IVF patient is to go through IVF, do genetic testing on the embryos, look at an embryo, be told that it's gorgeous, chromosomally normal transfer, and then have it miscarry and just not understand why. Yeah. So if the DFI is high going into that cycle, then you potentially have the reason why the embryo may not continue to grow. And the reason is that while the chromosomes might be normal, there are other things genetically wrong that contribute to the pregnancy ending. And so I suggest to my patients, especially in those doing or with a high DFI, they do something called PICSI. So they pick out the best sperm with PICSI before they do ICSI. So you can go to YouTube, put in the term PICSI, IVF, and then you'll see videos that describe how PICSI is done, how they're able to pick a genetically normal sperm cell as best as possible before they inject it into an egg.
And so for those of you that are listening that aren't sure what that means, that's essentially you're choosing the best quality sperm based off of their DNA and then injecting one directly into the egg and giving your increasing your chances of having a healthy embryo that's hopefully going to result in a healthy pregnancy. Would you say that's an accurate way of describing it?
100% accurate, yes.
Awesome. Can you tell us, this is actually, well, maybe before that, we sometimes hear of women who have egg quality issues as they get older. It's very common. But we sometimes hear of women who are in their early mid-20s who find out that they have poor egg quality or poor ovarian reserve. Is that something that can happen to men too? Like, can DFI be a problem when you're young and it's not necessarily connected to your age?
It could be, and that might be because someone has chronic medical problems, for example, obesity, hypertension, diabetes. So if you're diabetic, certainly your sperm DNA can be affected. If, let's say, you were born with undescended testicles, have a very low testosterone as a result, yes, I would say that even in younger men, you can see young men with a high DFI. So that's why, and that's the hardest thing, to be young and have fertility issues, because everyone just pats you on the head and says, you're so young, just keep trying. And for me, when I see a young person with fertility issues, I say, get in to see a specialist now because you're young.
Exactly. That's absolutely what happened to me. I think I was 27 when I decided myself I was going to go see a specialist because I didn't want to wait. And everyone was like, come on, you're so young. It's not going to be an issue. And I'm so glad that I did, because we figured out what our problem was really fast. And it was really important. It was eye-opening. It was scary. It was overwhelming. Absolutely. But then we knew what we needed to do to be able to go forward and have our family. That's one of the reasons why I have my son at home, is because we were able to figure it out so quickly. So for those of you that are listening, age is a huge factor for sure. But if you know you have health issues, whether they're reproductive health issues or otherwise, make sure you understand what your health is. Listen to what your body's telling you. Go to a specialist if you need. Get the information so you know what you need to do to grow your family. Do you have a story of a patient or a couple especially that just really stands out to you as a story of hope, of where paternal age was a factor?
I do. I'm trying to think if I can share the details.
Sure.
But I would say that I can't necessarily share the details for confidentiality reasons at this moment, but
Sure.
let me think of another case. I'll say this. I've had patients who've come to me after decades of trying. And, 2017 has been a great year as far as seeing patients who they probably thought that they would never be successful. So I've had patients 10 years, 13 years trying to then have some of the tests that I just discussed with you, do them, and then they're successful. So
That's
I do.
awesome.
Now I just thought of a family. So it's a family who had done countless IVF cycles, probably at least 6. And then in the cycle that I did with them, they miscarried. And they miscarried late 2016, early 17, and the Episona test actually wasn't available yet. So I did that test for them because I said, I didn't have the reason why for the miscarriage because the embryos were gorgeous. They were chromosomally normal. It was like everything should have worked. It just didn't make sense. So that test showed a certain change in the sperm that suggested that the mom should take a medication during the pregnancy to prevent miscarriage. And had I not had that test result, I don't even know what, it's like, I don't even want to think about how much more devastation they would have had to go through. But they're
Totally.
37 weeks pregnant right now, as I'm speaking to you, with twins.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a very remarkable story. And so if you can imagine going through that number of cycles to finally have success, and probably, over 6 to 7 years, you can imagine that this couple is just so over the moon right now as I'm talking to you. And the joy that they're going to be receiving, the joy that their heart's going to basically be exploding.
Yeah.
The C-section is scheduled for a couple days from now.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm sending all my best thoughts to them. What a wonderful, wonderful experience for them. And what an amazing story for those of you that are listening, that there is so much hope. And so much of it comes from when you know what's really going on, then you know how to fix it.
Yeah.
What do you wish men and women knew more about when it comes to paternal age and fertility that the media is not talking about?
That you can freeze your sperm. So I see so many people, let's say, who come to me for baby number 1 and the sperm was really good. And then over time, the guy he gains a little bit of weight. He's maybe drinking a little bit more stressed. And then the sperm is so much lower. That sperm freezing is actually a really good option to consider. And I have guys now that, they're ready to cycle right now, but I cycled them maybe 2 years ago and I froze sperm then because I knew there was a sperm issue and I knew that if I did IVF again, I'd want that good sperm. So it's actually not, unlike egg freezing where you have to go through all sorts of medications and a surgery, sperm freezing is quite easy and simple. And there are companies that do it. ispareme.co, something like that. There's a company out there that's doing it fairly easily. It's a home kit. But you can also call your local fertility doctor and have them order it for you or go through a sperm bank so that it's there so that if you need it, you can use it. Reprotect also has a kit. It's called the Male Overnight Kit, and that's pretty straightforward as well. Also a home delivery. It's a home kit as well.
That's awesome. And it is so much easier than egg retrieval and freezing eggs. It's so much less invasive and scary sometimes. If it's so easily available and accessible, it's absolutely a great option to consider.
Yeah.
Gosh, paternal age matters. And for those of you that are listening, if you're like me, when you heard that for the first time, you might be feeling a sense of relief. Like, oh, it's not just on me. There's something else. Somebody else also has a responsibility in helping make sure that we have a healthy pregnancy and baby. And so if you're trying to get pregnant, if you've been trying for a while, if it hasn't been working, make sure that both of you are checked out. Make sure that you understand what's going on for both of your health so that you can make the best decisions possible for your family. Aimee, what are your final words of hope for couples who are listening in who are trying to have a baby?
My final word of hope is just don't give up. Even though I really want everyone I meet to reach their goals the way they originally envisioned, sometimes the most beautiful pregnancies are through things like egg donation, embryo donation, and adoption. None of those things are failure to me. They're just really beautiful ways of starting and growing a family. And so I have people who, when I first meet them, they say things like, oh, I would never do that. I would never do that. And then they come back 4 to 5 years later and say, I'm ready. Mm-hmm. So while you may not be ready now, you could be ready in the future. So just keep an open mind about future possibilities for you. And know that there are doctors out there just like me that want to see you succeed and always believe in your fertility and your future success.
I love that. I love that. And I can really add on to that as a patient who's gone through it, that doctors like you don't do this work for the work. I mean, you're really in it. Your heart and soul is really in it. You can feel it as a patient that reproductive endocrinologists are a very special breed of doctors, I think. There's a very special place in my heart for them. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, thank you for the work that you do, too. I love following you on Twitter. All the inspirational messages that you put out there, I tell all my patients about you to follow you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And where can our listeners find you if they want to know more about your show or if they have questions? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. I'd love for you to follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter as well. The Egg Whisperer Show is a live show on YouTube every Wednesday, live from 5 to 5:30. I take live callers as well as emailed questions. So if anyone out there, if you don't have a doctor, you don't know where to turn to, and you just have a question and want to know where to start, finding me is a great way to start.
I love that. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing all of this really important information, and for being and starting this conversation that so many of us need to be having. So really, really appreciate you and your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Thank you. Gosh, this was amazing. And I've been looking forward to speaking with Dr. Aimee for so long, since George Clooney announced his pregnancy, or his wife's pregnancy, because nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about this. And we have to talk about it, because look how simple it can be to address. Look how simple it can be to know what is going on in your fertility health and why you're not able to get pregnant, stay pregnant, whatever that may be. It's not easy, but I've been there. It's not easy by any means, but there are answers available. If you're creating embryos that aren't surviving, if you don't have any embryos to freeze, if you're miscarrying, there's a whole other world out there of tests that you can do to get some more answers. And I know when you're going through fertility treatment, looking for answers is like finding gold. It finally makes sense. Finally, things are coming together and you feel like you have a little bit more control. So if you are trying to get pregnant, if you've been trying for a long time and it's just not working the way that you thought it would, please make sure that both of you get tested and do the right tests. Make sure that you understand exactly what's going on for both of you, because paternal age does matter. Paternal health does matter. And when you know what's going on for both of you, you can make really good decisions about what's right for your family. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you can head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so we can get more amazing guests like Dr. Aimee and continue providing you inspiration and tips and advice to help you build the family of your dreams. And if you are pregnant after fertility treatment and you're feeling super anxious and super stressed out, head over to parijatdeshpande.com/healthy high-risk pregnancy, all one word, to check out my course on how to get through your pregnancy with less anxiety and more hope. Also, I would love to stay in touch, so follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Parijat Desh. That's PARIJATDESH. You can do this, and you can have the family of your dreams. It all starts with taking the steps to understand what cards you've been dealt, and then finding a specialist to help you know what to do with it next. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.